Hello and welcome to Access Chat. I'm delighted that we're joined today by Amit Ghose, who is an advocate for facial difference. And I came across Amit via LinkedIn, via someone that we've had on Access Chat before, which is Phillida Swift, who runs Face Equality International. Amit is doing fantastic work, self-advocating, but also advocating for others that have visible differences and that really want to be open and start communicating about themselves and bringing confidence to other people. So I thought that the stuff that Amit was doing was of real interest to everyone, but especially to our community. And so we immediately connected on LinkedIn, and here we are. So Amit, thank you very much for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to have you with us. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and why
Absolutely.
you got involved in advocacy?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. We caught up online and we're talking about the vibe and the energy, and it's so good. And I'm looking forward to this session. To tell you a little bit about myself, then, I was born with a rare genetic condition, Neil, called neurofibromatosis. It's a name that many people cannot even pronounce, let alone understand the pain that you go through with this condition. It's more commonly known as NF1, just to make it a little bit easier. And what it is it's tumors that grow on nerves. It can grow anywhere in the body, internally, externally. For me, it grew predominantly on my face, predominantly in the left side of my face, making me look visibly different. And throughout school, throughout growing up, I've faced various different challenges, Neil. People staring, people commenting, people singling me out when there's like a group photograph or, various small little things that happen regularly. At the age of 11, my left eye was removed and I was left with an empty eye socket wearing an eye patch. Now you can imagine at the age of 11 going to school wearing an eye patch. You're there just waiting for children to give you comments. And I got all the comments under the sun. But for me, as any young person, you have hobbies, you have likes. For me, I really enjoyed playing cricket. And I used to come home every day and play cricket by myself. I used to bowl to these set of stumps my dad had bought me, and I'd just play every single day. And I'd never have the courage to go to school and stand in front of the children that were playing and say, hey, let me join in. But one day I got that courage. One day when I was walking out of school, I saw them playing and I was like, hey, can I have a bowl? And they were like laughing, mocking me, saying no. Eventually they handed me the ball, and the batsman was holding his bat with one hand, and he was like, yeah, what's this going to be? So I came running in, the ball pitched, he swung, and he missed. And everyone just stared, like, what's going on here? They're like, do it again. So I bowled another one, and I did it again. And on the third time, in my head, I was thinking, I'm going to hit his stumps now. I'm going to bowl a Yorker on his feet, and I'm going to get him out. And I did exactly that. And the next day, the PE teacher came up to me and said, do you want to join the school cricket club? And I did. And I became the highest wicket taker of that year ever up until that point.
Wow. Wow.
Exactly. And the shift, and the reason why I'm telling you the story is I became Amit, the guy who plays cricket. And before that, I was Amit, the guy with the funny face. So it's that shift in mindset. It's that shift in expressing your personality, embracing who you are, that opens up everything. Fast forward 20, 25 years, I'm married, I'm working, I've had a successful career in sales for the last 15 years. And one day I had this spark to create a TikTok video talking about my journey. And I made a video and I said, I was born with this condition. I want to help, support, and inspire people now with my story. That video that I initially made within 24 hours got over 100,000 views. Within 3 months, I was on over 85,000 followers. Companies like Lad Bible, New York Post, the Post Neil saw, Washington Post, Birmingham Mail, you name it. There was numerous amount of news articles that were done on this virality that I'd gone through. And now I'm in this situation where I want to go around the world, travel, and talk about confidence, talk about embracing who we are, talk about how to let our personality shine, talk about loving ourselves, talk about starting with ourselves. And that's how I came across you wonderful people here. And I'm so excited to go deeper into this conversation now.
I just muted myself. I'm failing at something that I should be better at by now. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic story, and Deborah, cricket is like the precursor of baseball, except you run in a straight line between some sticks. Yeah.
I get all confused because y'all don't understand what soccer versus football is. So okay.
No, it's all good.
Cricket is great. I'm just kidding. My next door neighbor played cricket. Smart aleck. I was impressed, even if I don't know what it is. No.
But in all seriousness, I think sport changes people's perceptions, and performance changes people's perceptions. So the engagement that you got and the changing of people's attitudes towards you because you are able to do something from sport, I think obviously is a catalyst. And we've interviewed para athletes before as well, and the impact that it has on their lives is genuinely transformative. But often they don't face the same level of challenge and stigma that someone with a facial disfigurement faces. So you've been involved with Philida and Face Equality International. How can other organizations get engaged? How can we take your message, and what message do you want us to take from you out into the wider world about how we can address some of these prejudices and stigma?
I think it's more about inclusivity. Like, we need to feel as if you can't judge a book by its cover. That's what it fundamentally comes down to, be it in the professional world, be it in relationships. You cannot judge a book by its cover. When somebody with a visible difference is going into an interview, there cannot be any unconscious bias about what that person can and can't do. And I've been victim of this, where people have interviewed me and assumed that I'm certain things, like assumed I can't talk. I've had people do sign language to me because they've straight away assumed that actually this person is probably mute or deaf, which isn't the case. So it's allowing people who have a visible difference to let them embrace who they are, open up and talk to you, and you learn from them. You absorb what they're talking about, you absorb what they're saying, and you give them that opportunity, that platform to actually prove themselves. I think that's what the message is, and that's what I want to portray to the world.
Emmett, you have a powerful story, and I'm fascinated by the point that you made that when they realized that you were talented, that all of a sudden you became a real person. I'm sort of putting those words there. And the audience knows I'm very focused on identity and understanding who are we and how are we really, how are we digging into identity? And here you wrote this authentic, just story about who you were and your experience, and it really spoke to the world at a time when we are really taking a look at who we are. I hope everyone is really digging deep to see who you are as an individual. I also know that we sometimes as human beings get confused about inspiration and and we accidentally can shift it over and it's inspirational porn. It's like, oh, isn't it so cute that like that garbage. Sorry, just using an example.
No, absolutely right.
Right. But at the same time, I think that what's powerful about your story, and we have a lot of powerful stories, we have a lot of powerful leaders talking about the truly being included as a human being. I think it's all about really treating ourselves as humans. But I think understanding how do we use our lived experiences to really change society's minds about what people are and are not capable of. And I know that when we had, we've talked about face equality and those things about how society, movies use people with scars to denote bad people, for example, things like that. I just was wondering if you wanted to like dig in a little deeper with me to talk about how, with everything that's happening right now in society, I mean, we are just rethinking everything. Is there an opportunity to really rethink our identities and give this identity to children at a much younger age to help us understand the complexity of who we are as human beings? But I just think we're to the point where we need to go beyond inspiration to really digging into what does it truly mean to be human and what are the values associated with that. Sorry.
I love that, Deborah. I really love that. I love what you said, because it is this inspiration that you said, I feel so sorry for him, or he's so cute. It's that pity. And people don't want that pity. I think what is most important and fundamental, and I say this when I go to schools and talk to children, is learning to accept yourself. We're so busy in trying to get validation, acceptance from others, especially nowadays, because we're creating content online, we're posting videos on Instagram, photos on Instagram, and we're constantly waiting for how many likes we've got, how many comments we've got. We need to stop that, and we need to look at ourselves and validate ourselves first. I went to school a few months ago and I did a talk, and this young boy came over to me and took some photographs with me. And afterwards, I found out, only yesterday, in fact, I found out his mother had wrote an article in the local newspaper. He was actually a heart patient. So he'd actually already had 3 surgeries up until the point I'd spoken to him. And he went home that day and said, I was so inspired by this person that came and spoke that I want to embrace my condition. I want to focus on my personality. And he started swimming. He started running. He started joining football clubs. And he's now waiting for a heart transplant. But he says it's going to be okay. It's going to work out. Because somehow I planted that seed into him that if you start by accepting yourself, the universe does the rest for you.
But my daughter always had kids with disabilities in her class since a very early age. But that's not always the case. Sometimes in some schools that never happens. How do you feel that schools can do, teachers in collaboration with parents, to create spaces in classrooms where kids are more open to understand the others, when sometimes the others with some differences are not present in their world, in their bubble? What do you think that it needs to be done there?
So it comes down to normalizing disabilities, visible differences, conditions. And the only way you can do that is by getting people who have had lived experiences, like myself and others, to go to schools, to go to colleges, go to universities, stand and talk and say. The way I look at it, Antonio, is if I had somebody come to my school when I was a young boy, before I'd embraced my personality and started playing cricket, and someone told me, Amit, it's about self-love, it's about you can make the difference, you've got what it takes to make it happen, then I would have grown up with that belief and that stability. So we need to do more of this now, because if I had that when I was a young child, it would have shaped me differently. So now let's shape the younger generation differently using our network, our expertise, as Deborah mentioned, our leaders who are going out and talking about these important subjects. Let's make that change now.
Following that, we have been talking about children, but there's also people who might end up, who might have an accident, and this might affect them later in life.
Yeah.
What are your views on that? How can people build that confidence in when they are, young adults or sometimes, an older person?
A lot of people ask me this question, actually, especially now that I'm doing a lot of social media videos about acceptance and confidence. People will always message me and say, oh, so how are you so confident? And I say to them, it's about fundamentally loving yourself and accepting yourself. And they say, well, that's easier said than done. It's easy to say love yourself. And I reply back saying, absolutely, it's easier. But you have to work on yourself every single day. It's that 1%, 2% gain. If I work on myself let's say somebody's had an accident, the most, you have an accident, you have a burn, and suddenly your life has turned upside down, and you feel like that's it. There's nowhere for me to go from here. But if you spend every single day spending 1%, 2% marginal gains on yourself, working on yourself, what will happen is in that sort of 1 year, 2 year, 3 years time, you will be a much stronger person than you were the day the incident happened or the day you realized the incident has happened. It's about having the belief, because beliefs lead to actions, actions lead to results. And it's about instilling that belief in them that, you know what, if you keep going, if you keep making those 1%, 2% marginal gains every day, you will get through it.
I just think that is such a good point that you're making, because that's something that I've been trying to teach myself forever. And I think to truly love yourself, it takes practice, and you have to practice. And how do I love myself? Love myself when I screw something up real bad, which I do all the time. I try to be gentle sometimes. It's like, well, and I would talk to myself like I was a little kid, just giving myself a break. So it does take practice learning to love ourselves. But as I agree with Amit, there's nothing more important than really learning to love yourself. And I think I finally have done it finally. But it took
It's
a while.
an ongoing process. It's an ongoing process.
It is ongoing.
I have days where I'm back down. And
Right.
I used to be very envious of other people's faces, especially going to weddings and going
Right.
in an Asian. I don't know if any of you been to an Indian wedding ever, but
I haven't, but I would go to one.
flamboyant.
I'm seeking invitations.
Absolutely flamboyant. And I used to dread going to weddings because I knew everyone's going to be dressed up, everyone's going to be glamorous, the boys are going to be wearing nice, glamorous clothes, and no matter how much good clothes I wear, I would have felt as if I'm ugly and I'm not liked. And there's, it's a different subject, but there's so much stigma in the Asian community as well about visible differences. I mean, nobody believed I would ever get married. I had people telling me in my face, oh, don't worry, why don't you put yourself in the parents' shoes? Would you want your daughter to marry someone? It's absolutely disgusting, the comment. And they were saying this as if they were trying to consolidate.
Right, trying to help you. And has your wife been congratulated for marrying you? Is she their hero?
Everyone's like everyone's suddenly like, oh, your wife's done such a great deed.
She's a saint.
My wife
loves you.
I saw you for who you are, and I married you. I used to hide half of my face when I used to talk to her. I used to only show her this side of my face. And one day we were on a video call, and she said to me, Amit, if I get married to you, I'm not going to get married to half of your face. All of you. So stop showing me half of your face. And that's the day the lesson for me.
And that tells you right there who she is and that she really loved you. And I will say, as a parent and as a woman who's lost her husband a couple of years ago, I want any one of my children that are going to get married to somebody that loves themselves, knows the strength of themselves, will protect them. The things that matter to me are so different now than what I thought I was supposed to care about. So I think your wife is lucky to have a wonderful soul beside her like you. But I want to throw a different question at you. We are big supporters here on Access Chat of the Valuable 500. We all sort of love Caroline and Stefan, and there's some amazing people at the Valuable 500. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, Amit. Okay.
Yeah.
So 500 corporations have gotten together at the CEO level and said, yes, we are definitely going to include your community. Love it, love it, love it. But one thing that we talk about is we have to be discoverable. 75 to 80% of our community do not have visible disabilities. And so they have created something called the Generation Valuable, which I don't really know a lot about it, but I believe what they're doing is really focusing on leaders in our community to really show who we are. And I was just curious from your perspective, why is it so important for these corporate brands to really know who our community is? And Emmett, is it even possible to know who we are when we are such a gigantic global, community?
I don't think it's that easy. It's a journey. We are very late to start this journey. Corporations are very late to start this journey and appreciate and understand it. And to be brutally honest with you, I think a lot of the companies still, it's a tick box activity. And that's what needs to change. It needs to change from a tick box activity to an activity that they're doing because they're seeing the value that it's going to bring to the firm. Having a diverse workforce is going to bring various different ideas, various different fresh views, various different fresh ideas that can stimulate a company, that can take a company from, this level to this level. And only when corporations and companies truly accept that and don't just do it as a tick box is when we're going to see the true growth.
So, absolutely, fundamentally agree. I can explain a little bit more about Generation Valuable. So this is actually within the organizations that are doing stuff, is to get the senior leaders to mentor talent within their organization. So young people with disabilities, to mentor them, so to make sure that they can progress to the C-suite. So what it's doing is it's creating C-suite leaders that actually actively have disabilities, and at the same time really getting the leadership of these organizations to have those difficult conversations with their talented employees about what it means to be disabled in their organization. So it's a two-way process, and I think it's a really useful exercise. We're lucky enough that our CEO decided that he would be the mentor, so he's actually walking the talk on this, and his mentee is not holding back in terms of what she's prepared to tell him. So it's I think
she's teaching the CEO.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad she is in our community because she's amazing.
Yeah.
So.
But then on top of that, I do think that there is a lot of marketing positioning from organizations about inclusivity that is, if you scratch the surface, it doesn't go too deep. And what we need to do as organizations, what we need to do as society, is to actually really start embedding this in the ways that we do business. So
yes.
And it should, and it, so as a business, because in my day job I work for a large business, as so does Antonio. I think it's imperative that we start making money from doing those things and measuring those positive returns on the investment of inclusivity that you were mentioning, because they are real, but quite often the metrics that are put out there are not very good, because if you start digging down into some of the figures that are quoted, quite often there's not a lot of science behind them. So one of the things that I'm really interested in is getting those really good quality metrics. And some of the stuff that organizations like the Valuable 500 are doing are trying to embed reporting and metrics on disability inclusion into corporate reporting in a meaningful way that then drives that change, because it impacts the share value, it impacts all sorts of other things. So there's multiple levers that we can pull here that hopefully have a positive impact on the cultures of organizations, on their productivity, their profitability, which then has that sort of ripple effect out in society as well, because corporations, especially large ones, have an undue influence, I think, on people's perceptions in society, because whilst we don't employ the most people, actually it's SMEs and small and micro businesses that employ most people. They don't on their own have the sort of impact that some of these big corporations do.
You're absolutely right about the point about it being two-way street, because even at the moment now, people are uncomfortable about expressing their disabilities or even noting it down. So the metrics aren't where they need to be, even in the organization I work for. We don't truly know how many people we have who are affected by disabilities, and because a lot of people aren't yet comfortable to open up about it. So it is I really like the point that Neil made about it being a two-way street.
So this is a real chance in a multinational where the laws are all different in different places, and we want metrics, right? We want to report on disability. At the same time, there are very different approaches in different cultures in different countries, and we want people to feel they're in a psychologically safe place to be able to identify as disabled. But there's almost like two strands, because in many countries there's a sort of official recognition of disability. You go and get your sort of disability badge, if you like. You become classified as disabled. You have the disability recognition, and then you're counted in specific statistics. And there are certain benefits, but also restrictions on what you can and can't do. So often, not only do people fear the prejudice about talking about disability and declaring a disability, but they feel that it may actually narrow down their prospects, because they're legally then not allowed to do certain things, because the state still has this patrician charitable view that people are not capable. And so what we're having to do is have a sort of please declare officially if you want to approach, but also we want to have sort of the self-ID and non-official recognition and celebration of disability in our culture, so that we can do that cultural change, support people as they wish to be supported without constraining them. But it's definitely something that is really challenging, because we know, for example, employees in Poland, they're only allowed to work a certain number of hours if they take on if they have a particular classification of disability. And as Antonio just put in the chat, there's no unified method to identify disability, because people classify it differently in different places. So, so I think that the work of self-ID is really important, and that's where Deborah is really doing a lot with Billion Strong around identity.
Indeed,
Deborah, I queued you up.
I know, and I appreciate you doing that too. Thank you so much. But you're such a guy. But I will say this. We really are stronger together. We all are stronger together, and we have so much to add. If we did nothing else, and I realize this is ridiculous, but if we did nothing else but the disability community took care of ourselves, anybody that's in the community, anybody that's lived experience as a parent, friend, ally, we all just took care of ourselves. We invested, we bought, we employed each other. We did. Everything would change. But a lot of people, somebody asked me one time, what is our biggest problem? And I said, well, biggest problem is that you don't even know you're part of our community. And if you do, you don't want to be part of our community. Be proud of who you are. That's what your message is, Amit. Be proud of your lived experiences. I am over a certain age. I have gray hair. So good. Well, let me put some purple in it. Don't you judge me because I'm over a certain age, or go ahead, but I don't care. So anyway, you, Neil and Amit, yes, this is why we believe your work is so important. So you go.
No, I absolutely love that. I mean, before I was a shy, insecure, lacking confident man. And now, on this journey in the last 3 months, 4 months of self-advocacy, talking on social media, everything. Now, I do a talk and I say, this is me, take it or leave it.
Right. There's a great song, This Is Me.
So powerful what you said, and so beautiful about, we just need to own it. It starts with me. If I can accept who I am, then I can go and help others.
Right. And you don't know who you're touching. You don't know who your message is touching. You don't know.
Absolutely.
You put that, okay, I'm going to open about who I am out there. And the world explodes because it needed it. And I also have to say, I think you're a very handsome man. I mean, I just really do think you're a very handsome man. And
Thank
so I
you.
think your wife is lucky. But I don't but I also judge people on things like that based on what they're putting out in the world. Who are you? And I see you as a beautiful, amazing, and handsome man. So I just think we sort of have to, we really, I think the world wants to hear this now, Amit. I think that's why your world has exploded, because thank you.
Talking about people who you touch, I mean, when I started making TikTok videos, I mean, I never thought I'd make TikTok videos, because I always thought TikTok videos were people dancing and mimicking other things. But when I first made that video, about 2 weeks into it, this wonderful girl from South Africa messaged me on direct message saying, Amit, I have the same condition as you. I really enjoyed watching your videos. My tumors grow on my thighs, and I can never go swimming. So whenever I go on holiday, I can't go swimming. And I said, why is that? She goes, well, if I wear a bikini and go swimming, people stare at me. They're going to judge me. My friends might not like me. And we had a brief conversation. I said to her, look, do you really want friends around you who will leave you just because you've got a few tumors on your body or some few spots? And she said, oh, thank you. That was very nice. I thought that was the end of it. 2 weeks after, she messaged me back and she sent me a picture of her Facebook status. And it was her on holiday wearing a bikini saying, I owned it. And I put on a status that I've got neurofibromatosis. And I'm proud. And, maybe I was the starlight inspiration for her, or maybe it was already there. But those messages are resonating with people, and they're making people move, and they're creating impact. And I want to be thankful to Neil for giving me this platform today to talk, because hopefully people listening will take some inspiration, will take some lessons out of what I've done. Because I'm no motivational speaker. I haven't studied, public speaking. I haven't studied confidence. All I do is talk about my lived experience and try and be my authentic self in the aim to help, support, and inspire people.
So I think that inspiration is quite a loaded word amongst the disability community. And there's this great TED talk by Stella Young called "I'm Not Your Inspiration," which is all about inspiration porn. But at the same time, we do want to inspire. We want to influence people to action, and so yes, you're inspirational. But you're a positive role model. So you're exhibiting role model behavior, right? So and I think that we need to highlight role models like yourself, so that other people can gain that confidence. So I mean, thank you for joining us today.
No, but just I'd like to something, because I feel it's important to notice that Amit is doing work on the advocacy, but when he shows that work and is in a sales meeting with customers, that is as important as advocacy. And it's very important that other organizations don't hide their employees with disabilities in other places and have them at front of the organizations. And because I feel that's I just wanted to leave that note there.
Yeah, great. That's what we expect this society now too.
Hospitality trade is a big one on this. Restaurants, bars.
Yes.
I still feel there's reluctancy in employing people who look a certain way. Call it unconscious bias, call it bias straight out. I think it's there.
I agree.
That needs to change. And it goes back to what Philida and everyone spoke about as well, with media and firms portraying people with visible difference in a certain way, which has a ripple effect on society and everything. Like, we're not born fearing people with visible differences.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not born thinking that someone who has a disability or a disfigurement or someone who's in a wheelchair is incapable of doing something. Those ideas are planted in our head by society, by social media, by films. It's a big nest, I think, and there's many drawers to unlock. There's many things to look at. But like you said, together we're stronger. We can make mountains move. And if we can be the start of something, that's enough, I think.
I agree.
Excellent. It's been a great conversation. Unfortunately, we need to wrap it up, and thank our sponsors, Amazon, and also My Clear Text, for keeping us captioned. So, Amit, look forward to continuing the discussion on social media. It's been a real pleasure today. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.